PPP might happen again where the nominee will go to. And you heard what the nominee of Treasury said this morning, that Kenyans are scared of PPPs because most of the time there's so much miscommunication about it. We hope as a committee you will do better in your communication and also look at those PPPs that they serve the interest of the country more than the investors. That is what the nominee of Treasury said. But to my question,
that is just a comment. You will not
a comment. Don't
answer to it.
Yeah. So I have a comment. Kenya is hosting the African Nations Championship 2025 next year and the AFCON in 2027. Do you have any ideas on how Kenya can deliver this to world-class standards? What will we do differently if we find you suitable to hold that office? And how do you plan to incorporate stakeholder and public feedback into your planning process? And lastly, do you know if as a country we have a gender violence and abuse policy in sports?
Nominee.
In the interest of time, I will go straight to, as guidance, Mr. Speaker, to say that yes, I am aware that we are hosting CHAN next year. We are preparing Nyayo Stadium and Kasarani for purpose of, to be ready by December for purpose of CHAN, and then in preparation for the Africa Cup of Nations in 2027. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to say that to deliver this world-class, to deliver the tournament to a world-class level, Mr. Speaker, we are going to put in place a steering committee that has all the stakeholders. Mr. Speaker, I'm also inviting, and I will invite the private sector to quickly join in. We don't need to wait until late, Mr. Speaker, to make sure that they invest, Mr. Speaker, in the opportunities that come with, Mr. Speaker, the Africa Cup of Nations in 2027. Mr. Speaker, also we are working on the infrastructure. Talanta Stadium, which is going to be in Jamhuri along Gong Road, Mr. Speaker, is ongoing. I will make sure that it's delivered to the required standards. Mr. Speaker, also all the stadium where the players who are going to train, we are going also to make sure that the stadia are put to be world class. One thing that is lacking in our country as we speak, Mr. Speaker, is that we do not have standards put in place in regulation of infrastructure. The law itself, the Sports Act, says that Sports Kenya will set the standards, but the regulations must be put in place. As a cabinet secretary, I promise this committee that will be a priority for me to make sure that all the infrastructure across the country are going to be built based on world-class standards. Because, Mr. Speaker, you will find some counties are awarding contracts, some institutions at national level are awarding contracts to build a stadium, but if you realize the stadium themselves, they are not world class. We are redoing now Nyayo Stadium. Yes, we are redoing Nyayo Stadium. Something we used to think it has 30,000 capacity. The reality is that it can only accommodate 18,000 people. The same to Kasarani is going to come down to 50,000 from the 60,000 we used to think. Because when you now deal with the standards itself, Mr. Required standards, it's going to be different. Mr. Speaker, I want to say that the gender violence is a serious issue in sports, and particularly more prevalent, Mr. Speaker. In fact, not just violence, gender violence, abuse, and sexual abuse, Mr. Speaker, among athletes who are women. Mr. Speaker, you know the case of Agnes Tirop. You are an ardent fan of athletics, who was killed, Mr. Speaker, in my county. Mr. Speaker, that is just one case. I know athletes, world-class athletes with world records, whom I have had to assist in the past as a senator, to call the DCI to protect them from attacks from, Mr. Speaker, pests that call themselves husbands. Once they see an athlete as a potential, they present themselves as suitors, Mr. Speaker, pretend to be in a marriage, Mr. Speaker, and then they prey on them and take their wealth. Mr. Speaker, this is an area that I have a passion for, not just because I've been appointed here, but something I have thought through. Even when I went to the funeral of Agnes Tirop, this is some of the things I talked about. And as a result of what happened with the Agnes Tirop, there was a committee that was formed in the ministry that came up with a raft of proposals. One, Mr. Speaker, that all training camps must, if a lady is going to be in a training camp, we must have a female matron in the training camp. Mr. Speaker, for junior athletics, you match training camps with the neighboring institutions. We need to oversight also the managers and the coaches, Mr. Speaker. Not just enough to register them, but we must be able to oversight them to make sure that they are following certain procedures. We don't want our athletes.
Some of them are the pests.
Yes.
Yes, if you don't evaluate them properly.
Absolutely, some of them are the pests. Mr. Speaker, we will not allow as a ministry any of our teams to travel, women to travel for international assignments if they are not accompanied by a female matron. We will not allow them to travel with men alone. Mr. Speaker, this is an area with all those raft of proposals, we are going to make sure that those proposals are put into regulations and be part of also of the revised law, because we need to revise the Sports Act. The Sports Act, Mr. Speaker, does not recognize at all the institutions of county government, does not recognize so many things that are modern. We will make sure that these issues raised by Honourable Member, Mr. Speaker, are going to be incorporated in the sports updated sports policy.
Let's take Nelson, Posing, and Gikaria, one question each in that row.
Waziri, the Olympics are ongoing, and I like the fact that you've also raised the issue of athletes from the North Rift. There's a dire situation with our athletes. As much as they are doing Kenya proud, there's really nothing to show for in terms of infrastructure and support that the government has provided to athletes. What you see there is sweat and tears from athletes who've struggled without any support. Many of you have seen athletes, dodging motor vehicles and motorcycles on the road, training. That should not be the situation our athletes should be subjected to. Many of them actually have made it to the global stage just by sheer determination. Waziri, coming from that region, please tell the country what you will do different this time around. Your predecessor, when he was here, said the same thing. He said he was going to change. He actually said he was going to give them world-class treatment, but the situation is totally different today. Number two, the people of Kericho County have sent me. No, this is a comment. They can decide to answer or ignore, but just for the record, the people of Kericho County have sent me to you. I landed with you in Kericho County, in Kerenga Airstrip, and there was a contractor on site. Immediately we left, the contractor left. What really happened, Waziri?
Thank you. They left together. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Murkomen, many Kenyans think that you have actually been taken to the right place because you come from a county of home of champions, exactly. So I think many people are seeing that, including myself. But my question, Honorable Murkomen, is there is a gap. And again, people think the Minister for Sports is Minister of Nairobi, so they think that it's Minister of Nairobi. There's nothing on the ground. So if you get the favor of House and you become the Minister, Honorable Murkomen, what will you do to bring the nexus between the national office, your office at national level, and the county, so that people in sub-locations or locations can actually feel that the Minister for Sport is their minister? Is there any way where good people or good sport people, and particularly maybe football, can win in that sub-location or location and be taken through, so that at least they can also feel like they're also national people, so that they don't see the Minister for Sports as only Minister for Nairobi? Thank you.
Gikaria?
Thank you, Chairman. Mine is just to, I'm just hoping that the nominee will crack the whip at FKF. Honorable Chairman, yes, and he has to, Honorable Chairman. I remember one day, 142 million was paid to some English company to procure the broadcasting van, which never arrived in the country. And after paying, we were told that the company that was given that money went into insolvency. So I think it is important for us to crack. But my question is, the nominee, my friend Murkomen, one of the best strikers in the Bunge Football Club, is football and talent was created at the youth centers, at the location and sub-location, then districts at those days, either sponsored by, in collaboration with, partnership with either Germany, Netherlands, and England. I don't know whether there's a policy for you to bring back, because when you talk about football, people think of Harambee Stars and AFC and Gor Mahia, but these players come from some place. So what policy is there to revamp the youth centers' sports, not only for football, but sports in general? Thank you, Chairman.
Can I answer those three, nominee?
Mr. Speaker, the Honorable Koech has talked about infrastructure. We have a number of pending stadia that needs to be completed. That includes, Mr. Speaker, Kapkatet Stadium in his county. It includes also, Mr. Speaker, the Wote Stadium in Makueni. It also includes the Kamarin, the famous Kamarin Stadium, Mr. Speaker, in Iten. In fact, I was so embarrassed. I'm sure most of you have seen this documentary in CNN, which has been run in the last 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. And, you know, it's now Kamarin is a monument of shame because the athletes there are complaining about the infrastructure, and the journalists are showing how the Kamarin has become what it is. The Speaker, I have been briefed already, Mr. Speaker, in the process of preparing myself for this confirmation hearing, that some of the processes are ongoing in terms of delivering the infrastructure. Mr. Speaker, I appreciate that the President has already given direction that sports fund should be wholly supporting the sports activities, and one of which is delivery of the infrastructure. I will make sure that, unfortunately, I'm being followed by the problem of pending bills all the way to sports infrastructure, but we'll make sure that we structure the sports fund in such a way that we'll deliver our infrastructure. We need to complete Bugungu Stadium, Mr. Speaker, in Bungoma. We need to complete the stadium, Mr. Speaker, in Bungoma.
Masinde Muliro.
Masinde Muliro, yes. I was confusing with the one in
Buhung is also stalled.
Yes, it's stalled, but the main one was to make sure that Masinde Muliro is covered properly and completed. The one is Kericho is completed because we built it recently because of these Madaraka issues. We are going to do a Kwale one. It must be also up to standard, but also all the other stadiums, Mr. Speaker, that are still pending will be completed to standard.
Speaker, also Udaya Stadium and Ruringu Stadium.
Ruringu and Udaya, Mr. Speaker, have also, especially Ruringu is in advanced stage. We'll make sure that we complete and restructure it. It is part of the stadiums, Mr. Speaker, that are going to be used in African Cup of Nations for training, and we will make sure that we deal with that. Mr. Speaker, on the issue of, so the infrastructure is very important. The second thing is, Mr. Speaker, it's not just enough to do infrastructure. The government must invest in the training itself, in identification of talent, and I'll marry this with the question of Honorable Gikaria. We will use the Kenya Academy of Sports to make sure that we establish training centers in at least all the counties, Mr. Speaker, where we are identify talent are trained. We will work also with the schools. Schools are better placed to help us to identify the talent. There's some of our footballers like Adrian, Mr. Speaker, who are picked last year to go to Spain, who are, as a result of sports championship in high school and in primary school. We will make sure that we work with them. In fact, one of the issues that I need to explore is to make sure that the Kenya Academy of Sports are going to train all the teachers who are coaches across the country. And not just training, they must also be certified, so that that certification is going to be recognized in their promotion, so that we need to use the teachers who are already in schools to make sure that we develop. That is really what is bottom up in terms of sports. Mr. Speaker, just to mention the Karenga Stadium in passing, as has been asked by Honorable Nelson, airstrip. It is true that we established and built Karenga airstrip for purpose at that point in time to facilitate the travel insofar as the Madaraka Day was concerned. However, we had promised the people of Kericho that we will do a world-class airport there, and we needed land. Even when we built the airstrip, the land did not belong to the government of Kenya. It's still being owned by the private company that owns the tea farm. And the negotiations are in advanced stage, Mr. Speaker. I believe we have, that we will succeed to get, they had offered about 20 acres, but I said, it will be useful to get at least 100 acres in that place so that we build an airstrip properly with a proper terminal, Mr. Speaker, to serve the people of Kericho. The money had already been set aside by Kenya Airports Authority. Some of the money that was allocated at that time, part of it has been used, part has been left to complete the negotiations. I have no doubt in my mind that my successor will deliver Karenga airstrip, Mr. Speaker, in the fullness of time. Had I been given a bit of more time in the same ministry, I had no doubt that within the next 1 year, we were going to be able to deliver the Karenga airstrip. Not just Karenga airstrip, many other airstrips across the country that the people of Kenya are demanding, because we want to make travel become bottom-up, cheaper, and our country accessible, including the plans we had in Moyale and Marsabit County and a number of the airstrips, Mr. Speaker. I agree with Honorable Kosing. Honorable Kosing's county produces some of the best athletes in the country. Mr. Speaker, you know, Honorable Kosing and I come from the same area. Leland area produces some of the best athletes, world beaters. But, Mr. Speaker, the facilities are not there. There's a place that border both of us, they have a small training camp. There's also another training camp in Kapenguria, among other places. But, Mr. Speaker, most of those camps are owned by private people, and they're very small. Mr. Speaker, the first gap is that Sports Act does not recognize counties else anywhere. That is why we must review Sports Act immediately to make sure that even as national government set standards and do some of the sports functions, the county governments are given, have a partnership with national government insofar as implementation. Mr. Speaker, we also need to make sure that sports development, the grassroots, the same question that had been asked by Honorable Kikaria and Honorable Nelson, that we need to make sure that through Academy of Sports, we are identifying talent very early and mark them to be taken to specific areas of training so that we can succeed. In fact, the other thing that we must do is to make sure that even as athletes prepare for their sports, they should not leave their education. There is a serious gap, especially in athletics, Mr. Speaker, where many of the athletes, once they go to running, they are told, you know, concentrate on running. Yet when we go to rugby, you have graduates with master's degree and they still succeed in rugby sevens and their rugby career. So it's just an attitude of how we fashioned the athletics. We need to make sure also we support their education. And to follow what Honorable Kikaria said, we need also to deal with these investments. We need to attract more people to establish academies in the country, sports academies. I know the international schools have very good facilities for training young people. We need also that to be affordable to the people at the bottom of the pyramid by making sure that we support investors who can come from out of the country to do what used to be done in Mathare and other areas to using, Mr. Speaker, establishment of academies. Mr. Speaker, the last thing I'd like to say is that Honorable Kikaria spoke about the 142 million van and the all problems that we have in this sector. Mr. Speaker, corruption is a big issue in this.
You already covered that.
Yes, I'm just saying that, just as he said, we are going to be able to deal with the issue of corruption head on.
A forensic audit.
Yes, Mr.
On
Speaker.
how much money international organizations have been sending to these institutions.
It is so ordered, Mr. Speaker. You have ordered.
Mary?
Thank you. You've touched on sports academies. Honorable nominee, 31 academies of sports are earmarked to commence this financial year, 24-25. They were advertised, but again cancelled. Honorable nominee, we are at a time when Kenyans are tired of too much talking. Kenyans want to see action, not what has been witnessed, PR, managing of members and representatives of the people. I want you to tell Kenyans, if you succeed in this nomination to the ministry, how long will it take you to advertise for the commencement of the sports academies? And these academies are being funded by the sports fund. I happen to be a member in that committee. And you have said that it is possible to get partnerships even to support that endeavor.
So tell Kenyans when we will see the sports academies commence. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To Honorable Murkomen, we've worked with him in this Transport Committee, and I want to ask him, you have talked about the Jan 2025 and 2027, but I didn't hear you mention anything about the stadium in Meru being used, because the stadium was done for over R1 billion shillings, and already it has not been even handed over. The running track is coming out. And the youth who come to leagues, they spend over R1 million shillings just in courses run by FKF for training and all that. But in return, they do not get anything. And then they pay 60,000 to join leagues. And after joining leagues, they have to pay to use the stadium, 15,000 shillings. And I believe it's all over. So my question to you, Honorable Murkomen, is what are you going to do about the youth? It's not just football. It's all sports which we need the youth to be involved. And as well, the same Sports Kenya, which did Meru Kinoru Stadium, and it's a very big stadium, I believe you've been there, demolished our police station in the stadium, demolished the ACC's office, and promised to give 42 million to build new ones, where your two predecessors, if you are confirmed, Honorable Ambassador Amina, she ignored it. Honorable Ababu Namamba, when he came to Parliament, he says, yes, as soon as funds are available, he will give. So I want to know from you if that one for Kinoru, what you will do. And we've got even another stadium in Maua, which is waterlogged. We've got another one in Kobo. It's not there. And in Timau, and many other places.
You are making a speech. Yes, yes, Murugara.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Nominee, talk about Standia. The Chuka Stadium is also not complete. Talk about your previous ministry of roads. Tharaka-Nithi is the home of stored roads, the most ugly of them all, including Chakariga Marimanti. You need to comment on that one. Then a comment on how you fed sports persons, because I had a young man who actually went all the way to Rwanda on the high jump, came back. I pleaded with your predecessor to meet him and fed him, the PSC Sports. I received the cold shoulders and nobody did any of that. What is the policy you're likely to have as regards the feting of sports persons? Young people, actors or artists, they are occupying us because they're not happy. They are doing all this work, but their royalties are not being paid. What are you likely to do about improvement on payment of royalties for these artists, including what benefit Kenya gets from all these nice movies we see internationally with the animal world, National Geographic, animal films, wildlife? What benefit does Kenya get from all this? Because this is where we should be selling our property and receiving payment for. Thank you.
Nominee, answer those three.
Mr. Speaker, again, I'll try to summarize. On the Honorable Daud's Chan 2025, yes, we are prepared, and I would love to get a brief whether Kinoru Stadium is one of the beneficiaries in terms of either training or playing. I know, of course, Kinoru Stadium. I've even addressed a rally there, a famous rally before. And you speak to the same things I talked about. I told you about standards. A county starts a stadium, they build. Sometimes it is a money-minting project. There is no intention to complete, or even it's completed, it is shoddy. It is not just Kinoru alone. All the stadium across the country. There was the case of Kericho. They finished it and it was coming out. Machakos the same. There were many other places across the country. That is why it's important to put in place standards that you can measure against, so that if you don't achieve those standards, it is easy to even prosecute the contractor, because there is international standard adopted locally. And I promise you, that will be my greatest priority. And I hope I can do that within 3 months, because I have had a conversation and bring it to this house, so that this parliament and parliament can be able to pass regulations that will make sure that standards of sports facilities are adhered to. I also want to say that on the question of your demolished DCC office and the chief's office, if I look at the money you're asking, that if we speak, if also Honorable Kindiki is approved, this government is one government. We can tell Interior, please find other resources, because we are straining insofar as completing the infrastructure, find other resources and build a DCC office. And Honorable Kindiki is not just your neighbor, is your friend. So we can be able to sort that issue, God willing. The third issue is that on the Chuka Stadium, I think also I was briefed that it's not yet complete. We need to just make sure that we complete now within the standards, with the required standards, so that we don't also complete hurriedly, but in a shoddy manner. Sorry for Chakarika Marimanti. It's my pet subject. I was there with your senator then to launch it in 2014. And the biggest problem as our country, and I pity my successor in this sense, that you have a pending bill of about 165 billion for road construction. I don't know what we are going to do, because this is not just a ministry problem, it's also a budgetary problem. And when I see that Finance Act failed, and then the other Finance Act is also facing challenges to another gap of another 200 billion. I think we need to be serious as a country. If we really want this infrastructure, we must be able to raise our own resources and support the infrastructure sector. Unfortunately, or fortunately, our honorable member here, if he's approved, will be the Minister of Finance. I hope he will be able to solve that problems, because he also has tolled roads in the Sori Road in Homa Bay. In Migori, in Homa Bay, sorry. Mr. Speaker, on the question of the particular student, I will be very deliberate, very personal to solve individual problems. I know athletics, you can have, do you know there are countries that travel with only one athlete? The whole federation goes with one athlete.
Mozambique did so in more than 4 Olympics.
Yes, so we are lucky as a country.
She always came back with a gold medal.
Yes, Maria Mutola, yes, 800 meters. So, Mr. Speaker, we can be able to make sure that we meet that person individually. They are very important. By the time they are reaching that level, I am ready to meet them within the first 1 week when I go to office. And George, being my senior honorable, should be able to bring them.
The nominee has been responding like he has already been approved. He's just said when I go to office, he is not used the word if at all.
I have used so many times.
Hearing him say, if I'm approved.
Yes. Should I be approved if I am approved, Mr. Speaker?
I think Naisula
Mr. Speaker,
have a go at you.
There is a problem with the royalties issues, Mr. Speaker, for our musicians and performing arts. Mr. Speaker, that responsibility, it's very important that we sort out corruption in the CMOs. The people who have been given the contract to collect, we should not give them a free hand to collect and distribute without government having a view of what, Mr. Speaker, is being collected. And I think this is an issue Parliament should take up seriously. I know it's not in it will not be in the ministry that I have been proposed to. It is in the arts and culture, in the gender ministry, but it is something that I have been following personally. And I hope that KECOBO, the Kenya Copyright Board, will be a bit more serious. There is a lot of corruption-related issues have been raised insofar as identification of the CMOs and, Mr. Speaker, distribution of those resources. People must be able to earn from their sweat, Mr. Speaker, and I hope they will be supported. On the film industry, I know it's part of creative industry in the ministry that I have been proposed to serve if I am approved. Mr. Speaker, I have been told that the law that governs this sector is a 1963 law. Mr. Speaker, the association itself and the policy is also an old policy. Again, I've received a representation by many people who say, if you are approved, please organize the first meeting. I am even told that insofar as filming our wildlife, the preference goes to foreign filming companies that come to film, and the local companies here do not get access to and they're getting billions of money, Mr. Speaker. There is no accountability or transparency as to how much they are able to live in our country. This is an area that we must register all the filmmakers when they come to our country, but we must also facilitate our own filmmakers to be able to benefit from our own animals, Mr. Speaker, in our national parks and game reserves. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Owen.
One
question, followed by Robert, one question, Mule, one question, Raso, one question.
My one question, Honorable Speaker. In
that order.
Kipchumba Murkomen, you're my good friend, but that notwithstanding.
Causing with the nominee.
Okay, I said notwithstanding. You've mentioned Stadia all over Kenya, but you've not mentioned any in the North Coast. Unfortunately, this government has never invested anything in the North Coast in terms of Stadia. And the coast in its own would be a very good place for sports. Even parliamentary games are coming to coast, but where will they play? Because we have no. So if you are given this opportunity, would you consider investing in Stadia in the lower coast to promote the youth there, where there's immense talent in terms of football and other things, but it has never been tapped because of lack of infrastructure? I thank you.
Roberts.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Nominee, I just want to mention one thing that I've heard you mention here about growing talents from schools. Maybe one of the reasons that this fails is because the capitation given for activities in school is totally inadequate, and that is under the Ministry of Education. So maybe you can talk to your counterpart, if approved. Just one question. We've seen delegations going for sports activities, international sports activities, where the officials, that is government, officers, carry huge delegations and, are living lavishly. Whereas the athletes and players are actually sometimes even stranded at airports. Can you tell Kenyans what you will do so that this kind of situation that embarrasses this country does not recur?
Mule.
Thank you very much, Speaker. Nominee Murkomen, if you are approved by this House to be the seers of youth, creative economy, sports, I just want to look at the youth right now who are part and parcel of you, because I've seen your CV, you are part of Millennium. And then the army you have talked about called Genz. What new programs you'll bring on board to accommodate them to work with you in this ministry?